Islam, Shalom, Assalamu Alaikum, Osio, Hola, Aloha, Bonjour. This is your brother, Zach Bey, Indigenous American Moore, coming to you live and in full effect. Thank you for joining me once again. Please like, share, subscribe to my channel. Hit that notification bell if you would like to be notified whenever I'm dropping and uploading new content. Leave a comment down below and interact with my content. I really do appreciate you. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up. It really helps with the algorithm. Let's jump into it. I want to continue on part 4 of growing up as a so-called black male in America. Um, I ended on my last bit about um, filing my first affidavit in 2016. All right, so I kind of want to pick up there, and I want to go into a little bit more of my backstory and some of the experiences that I have had. Excuse me. Growing up here, systematic racism, just some of the things in my life that I personally went through and had to overcome. So, like I said, in 2016 is when I filed my first affidavit. Um, it was an affidavit of truth. And the affidavit of truth pretty much stated who I was, that I was like a flesh and blood living natural person, not a corporate fiction. Um, I mean, if you understand um, legal entities, corporate fictions, like the straw man argument, pretty much. Started dabbling and diving into that information and started learning what legal fictions are, what legal entities are, things of that nature. So I reclaimed um, my physical and natural God given appellation that I got from my parents, or name. Um, Saying that I'm flesh and blood, living, not the corporation, and that I'm aware of the corporation. So I filed that, simple paperwork. You get it notarized at a notary public. You could do that at your local credit union or bank branch, or even go to a notary public office of some sorts. Right. So getting things notarized is very simple. It's part of common law. So, it's something everybody should be familiar with. You can file paperwork in um, claims in court. Um, you know, you can use it as evidence in police reports. Just by having a affidavit, or s- um, a piece of paperwork notarized. Pretty much like a stamp of authenticity, or like a stamp of approval, pretty much saying that somebody reputable has looked over this and you sworn that the facts and the information on there are, factual as you. So, learning that information, I started operating. I started traveling instead of versus driving commercially. I started learning about the intricacies of the identification cards, and how here in America we don't have a national identification card. All right, so in the United States of America, we don't have a national identification card. Each state is separated into pretty much like its own country. So each state has its own state identification card issued by like a Department of Motor Vehicles, a DMV, um, MVA, something like that. All right, so this private company or corporation is doing business with the citizens, or the population of said state, and they're issuing these identification cards, which are not nationality cards, and they don't have the same power internationally as like a passport would. So the closest thing to a nationality card that America has would be the United States passport, or different tribal nations also have nationality cards, which are federally recognized, even if they're not, excuse me, pardon me, even if they're not state recognized, or if there's different recognitions between like state to state. Um, All right, so I did that. I made my own personal identification card, with like my personal ID, name. It has to have a certain amount of facts on it, height, um, your height, date of birth, hearsay, some kind of geographic location like domicile or something like that, or so-called residence or address. So it has to have certain key information in order for it to be deemed as an identification card, lawfully. All right, so I did that just so I could stop using the state issued identification card or driver's license or something like that. And also, you have to, or you can rescind that. That license or ID or whatever, right? So you can rescind that contract that you made with the Department of Motor Vehicles or the MVA, and you can give that back to them as their property, and you can claim your natural rights and operate without them, honestly, um, because they are a private corporation just doing business, like their government. So I started learning that information. I started traveling on my own, that way. So I never ran into any issues. I'm always a safe traveler. I didn't run any issues back then in that regard. Of course, there's normal things that happen daily life. You might get pulled over. Um, you might just happen to have like a random encounter with like a policy enforcer or a highwayman, something that nature. All right. So once I started learning about like the straw man argument, or the straw man, like trick bag that they pretty much have us in, or most citizens in, I started doing more information about that. Started learning more about contract law, and that's when I started to rescind these contracts to these agencies and stuff like that, and putting them on notice. So letting them know that what's going on, and I pretty much continued that way for a while. Um, in 2016, I met this one female. She actually became the mother of my children. But when I first met her, um, it was kind of fun. It was kind of I'd been working a lot, so I wasn't in any kind of like relationship or anything for like a good while. Um, I had broken up with a woman I had been seeing for a good while before then. Um, so I had just come off of being like single. I met this woman, um, in some of our first few encounters, like some one-on-one time. She was at my place. She ended up getting a little too drunk, um, and was really acting out of character, acting pretty reckless. Being very messy, not respecting other people's belongings and stuff like that. So, started making a mess around the place. So I had to pretty much put her out the house. I had to, you got to leave, you got to go, you got to find somewhere to go, because you can't stay here acting like that. So I pretty much put her out the house. I didn't put my hands on her or anything. I pretty much like had the door open, and I pretty much used my body, um, as like blocking her from staying inside the house. I pretty much just like walk toward her, with my arms open, kind of like, you're not gonna go past me. You need to go to the door. You need to leave. So I got her out of there. I end up grabbing her belongings that she left, like her purse and like charger or something like that. So I put that outside, because I wasn't gonna let her back in to get anything, and she was a little belligerent. She was causing issues for like the neighbors and stuff like that. So I wasn't trying to deal with her anymore. I was just like, all right, you have your property, you're out of here, you need to find somewhere to go. Um, so she ends up calling the police, or the neighbors called the police or something like that. The police show up. I don't talk to them, um, but they come around to the back where I'm sitting. I'm sitting on a balcony, relaxing, and they come around to the back, and the guy like pretty much calls out to me. I answered foolishly. I shouldn't have freaking answered at all. Um, and then he was like, "Yeah, do you know this one girl right here, whatever, blah blah." And I'm like, "Yeah, yes, clearly she's drunk. I told her that she needs to find somewhere to go because she was causing a ruckus in here and she's causing issues for the neighbors. So I'm thinking she might get arrested for like public intoxication or something like that because she was making a racket. She was, disturbing the peace. It wasn't too late, but it was just getting to like the early evening. But um, yeah, so he was trying to tell me to come open the door, come talk to him. I'm like, no, no, thanks. And that's the end of this conversation. So, you know, I think that's the end of it. Um, months go by. We end up patching things up. Uh, like she apologized and all that stuff like that. So we're still talking, still communicating, and we're actually going out on a date. All right, so we're on the way to the movies. I cannot remember off the top of my head what movie we were going to see. Um, I want to say it might have been like the Nat Turner "Birth of a Nation" movie. I believe that came on like 2016. I want to say it was that film. It might have not been though. But we were on the way there. I was traveling in my automobile. She was in the passenger seat. Um, I get pulled over. You know, uh, I see the lights behind me, and apparently there was like a speed trap or something, right? Some kind of speed trap. So the policy enforcer or the officer, it was like Fairfax. It wasn't Fair, it was Alexandria Police Department. Um, they asked me like, do I know how fast I was going? I pulled you over, stuff like that. I'm not falling into any of those traps. I'm pretty much just trying to get information from him, trying to figure out what's going on. All right, so he asked for my information. I give him my information. He's looking confused, like, what is this? Do you have a driver's license or something like that, right? So I'm not giving him any of that stuff. I gave him my personal identification, which I created, um, and my affidavit of truth, swearing to such. So I gave him that. So pretty much the information they want to get from that is your name and date of birth. Allegedly, that's what they tell you. But they actually enter a code. There's a serial number that's on the top of driver's licenses or IDs issued by Department of Motor Vehicles or MVAs. So they actually want to enter that code into a system. So yeah, I didn't supply that to them, but I offered the lawful things that they requested. And so they don't tell people this. They don't tell people that they really just want to add that code into the system so they can collect more information about you and build up a file on you, right? So um, I just gave him my name. I gave him my affidavit of truth. He was giving me a hard time. So time goes by. He's still requesting it, trying to intimidate me, things of that nature. I'm filming the encounter, and I'm also on the phone with family, and I'm also telling my family to reach out to pretty much to the attorneys that we know that we have their contact information, right? So I'm telling members of my family to do that and to also be a witness that I'm being pulled over. They're harassing me. They're trying to press me out. They're trying to get me to step out of the automobile, and allegedly it's supposed to be like for a speeding ticket. They said I was allegedly going 20 over the posted limit, so it was like allegedly reckless driving. All right, allegedly. So I'm speaking to the officer, and then I eventually asked for the sergeant to come since I wasn't getting any cooperation from them. So I asked for a supervisor to come to supervise this officer who clearly doesn't know the law. All right, so they were the policy enforcers were almost insistent on no, the sergeant isn't going to approach your automobile unless we know that you don't have any firearms or anything like that, right? So I had my concealed carry permit in that state, and one thing I realized that kind of added a target on me, that when policy enforcers run your tags and you possess a concealed carry permit, that actually all runs back. through like the DMV and everything like that. So when they run those plates and they get your identification, your name, registration, all that stuff, owner of the automobile, it actually comes back with any information that's compiled. That's what's held on that number that's on top of your identification card. All right. So they knew I had a concealed carry permit. So they were already on edge, even though in Virginia it's completely lawful and legal. And all over America, the Second Amendment, right? So it shouldn't be any cause of alarm for a normal law-abiding person to have a firearm or something like that. Um, but these people looking at me, my age, my demographic, felt some type of threats, felt some type of fear. All right, even though completely law-abiding. All right, so they were trying to give me a hassle about the sergeant approaching my automobile. I wasn't budging. The sergeant eventually walks by and comes back and talk and starts speaking with me. So we're speaking. They're a lot more cordial than the other officers were. Not trying to impose any will, but he was just trying to get information and things of that nature. So he ends up letting me know that there was some kind of warrant found in the system for me, allegedly, right? Some kind of alleged warrant. And this warrant was for like property destruction or something like that. All right. I find out that the female in my passenger seat and the sergeant also finds out that the female in the passenger seat is the person who was stated as the victim, like the property damage or whatever, right? She stated that like she said something like allegedly that I broke her glasses or something like that, which was not true. So I'm just like, what? I'm looking at her in the passenger seat, like, do you know what this guy's talking about? Like, you filed a police report against me or something like that, and I have a warrant now. And I'm just looking like, wow. I'm just like, this is the person you're talking about right here. So if I was some kind of threat or danger to them, or they were filing charges against me, they're here and they could attest to that. And he's like, wow, really? That's you? Can I see your ID or whatever? Because at this point, they weren't going to let me leave and go about my business. All right. So I was not free to go. I was detained from that point while they were doing the investigation. So since I got more information from the sergeant, and he was more cordial and gave me, and he was less aggressive. All right. So it took the tension down from the other officers or policy enforcers who were standing back around in some kind of um, guarded formation or something like that, right? Um, so he verifies her identification because I tell her that she's gonna take my automobile. I was making sure my automobile was not getting towed. Um, so he checked her identification. He was like, "Wow, you are the person who's listed on here." So he was like, "All right, so if everything's fine with you, this can be cleared up, fairly quickly." He explained to me everything that was going to go on because I'm not familiar with this criminal justice system. Don't give them anything, make sure they explain everything. If you're not familiar with exactly what's going on, and they are allowed to lie to you, but from the information I knew of my own, I knew that he was not telling me a lie. He was actually being truthful and upfront with me. So he was saying that I will be booked for this alleged thing. They're gonna let me. I'll see a magistrate, and most likely I'll be released on a bond or something like that. So that's what the sergeant told me. The officer who made the original, or the policy enforcer who made the original stop, he was the one who was actually there with me, speaking to the magistrate in order to plead his case. So whatever alleged charges he came up with could potentially be filed and stick. So he tried to charge me with, of course, the alleged reckless driving, also with the warrant arrest for the destruction of private property, and then also it was he tried to throw on a obstruction of justice. All right, so he tried to say that the fact that I was standing up for my rights and I was speaking for myself, um, and I wasn't forfeiting or giving up any of my rights. He's tried to say that I was obstructing him from doing his duties or obstruction of justice. All right, so I go to the magistrate. he gives his little spiel on what he believes, I should be charged with and why. So I say, do I have a chance to speak? The magistrate said, yes, you can speak for yourself. And he also tried to say that I was obstructing justice and I gave like a false identification because I wasn't using their ID, and I also corrected my name on there, right? So the name in their system wasn't 100% exactly the name that I go by, all right? So I was making that correction, and the magistrate looked at me, looked at him, read my affidavit of truth, read my ID. He asked me, he was like, what is this name on here? Um, he specifically asked about the Bay, the Bey. He was like, what is this Bay? I told him, I was like, that's a title, all right? So a title can be given, and that title can be used as like a surname, all right? Um, so I was like, that's my title, so a title can be given upon one, right? Um, or you're right. So he was like, okay, pardon me, I'm trying to remember because it was a while ago, but he gave me a favorable reply. All right. So as the prophet Noble Drew Ali said, go to those who know law, and you speak to them in an intelligent tone, and they will issue you a favorable reply. Literally, that's what I was doing. I was learning this information, studying it, and I started applying it. And they clearly knew that I had studied and knew what I was talking about, but yet they will test you. All right. They will test you. They will try to see if your resolve is strong. They will try to see if your mentality is weak. They will try to see if your spirit can be subdued. All right. So you have to have like a strong mind, spirit, and like body. Honestly, body would be the last one, but um, a strong mind, a strong spirit, not to give up, to speak what you know, what you believe, and to stand on it, and to not consent or relinquish any of your rights. All right. So once the magistrate realized and read over my affidavit, he was like, I appreciate your manifesto. And then he corrected the officer. He was like, no, that isn't giving a false identity, because he gave you his ID, which has his name on it clearly, and he also gave you this. So he pretty much kind of like reprimanded the officer. He was like, "Yeah, those charges, I'm not going to file those because this this gentleman clearly did not obstruct justice. He was just applying his rights, which he's entitled to." I made a comment. I was like, "Are those Black's Law dictionaries behind you, sir?" And he was like, he was like, "Yes, all those are Black's Law dictionaries." And I was like, "Yes, I read those often." He was like, he kind of gave me like a nod. It kind of like, "Yeah, I can see that." So he was not hostile toward me in any kind of way. I did not feel any hostility from this magistrate. I can tell you, I actually felt some sort of appreciation. He told me that he appreciated my manifesto. That's the affidavit I gave them, stating what I believe, who I am, and things of that nature. He said he actually appreciated my manifesto and reprimanded that officer, and then released me on a PR bond. Personal recognizance, no type of fee or anything like that was exchanged. So I get picked up by the mother of my son Zachary at the time. She picked me up because she had my automobile after I spent maybe like 2.5 hours in there going through all that stuff, the whole booking situation, fingerprinting, all this BS. So I'm signing or I'm autographing, um, all rights reserved, under UCC 1-308 without prejudice. Signing that underneath anything that they're presenting me with, any kind of signature they need. That's what I'm writing on there. All right, to reserve my rights and protect myself. But that's how I'm operating during that time. So I get picked up. I completely beat that encounter. Like I said, she was not um, trying to go against me. She didn't show up to court when that case was called. Um, she knew it was a lie, and she didn't support their side. She pretty much asked me what did I need her to do to make this go away. So yeah, pretty much from that, she wrote a statement contradicting the statement that she gave to the alleged policy enforcers on the night before. Of course, she didn't show up as their witnesses, and I gave that to the public pretender or public defender that I had during that time that I was coaching through what type of defense I would potentially like to have if I needed it. Right. So I was mostly doing everything on my own, but I was coaching them on how I wanted them to proceed, since I'm up on game, so to speak. But I really wanted to just go over, you know, um, the story and the situation, a little bit backstory on my life. But this is just one time in my earlier years when I first started learning this information and I first started operating in this information that I did deal with something like that, how tensions were high and then they eventually lowered as you continue to be intellectually inclined to de escalate and to destroy these people, um, these people's tactics to try to belittle you or to try to fit you in a box so they can control you. All right. Once they see that they can't fit you inside the normal framework, they have to pretty much go on the guides or the lines that you present to them in order to continue to do their job or duty or whatever. And as long as you're not being belligerent, ignorant, profane, you're being sensible, speaking in an intelligent tone, most likely you will get a favorable reply. In my experience, I have mostly gotten favorable replies. There have been times when I did not know everything, and there's an old saying that says, um, you often have to knock on the door 3 times before it's opened. That might be some like secret occultism, but I realize that even if you know what you know, and they know that you know what you know, and you're completely factual, they will still test you to see if your resolve is there to stand on that and to actually speak that, and for them to do what they need to do in order to remedy that situation. All right. So I want to end it there. I know this might be a little long, but this is your brother Zach Bay, Indigenous American More. Thank you. Wado. Peace.